and I'll get on. If not, he should be able to get on for that meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll get on. If not, he should be able to get on.
Okay.
With Matt getting on, we do have a quorum now.
You okay? Who else?
We had Matt Dahl join us from Midvale, but you'll need to wait until Roger's ensured that we have the live stream up.
It's getting posted right now.
Okay. So we got Brad. Good morning, Brad.
Morning, Alex. How are you?
Good. Roger, is Laura joining us this morning?
Yes. So she should be on any minute. Okay, the link is posted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it looks like we're good on that front.
Hey, well, very good. Let's begin then. Thank you, everybody, for making time in your schedules today to be with us. We obviously have some very important issues on the agenda to discuss this morning, but important, but also exciting. So all of you look well, at least to the extent that I can see you. So I hope that you've been well and your families are healthy and everybody's doing good. Interesting times, right? But good times for Utopia. So thank you to everybody involved in helping us be successful. So it's very much a team effort. We have a set of minutes to approve from August 10th, 2020. Be happy to entertain a motion on those minutes.
Move for approval. This is Paul Isaac.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second to approve the August 10th, 2020 minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, was that Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that appeared to be unanimous. Thank you. The next item, is Laura on? Do we want to go ahead without her, Raj?
I'm sending her the link. She said she doesn't have a link.
Or we can start and have her join, or?
So yeah, we're trying to get her online. I can start. I can introduce it, I guess, but she'll probably repeat everything I say about it.
We can certainly.
It's in the agenda packet.
We can drop down and take the next item and then come back. Say that again, Krista.
I just forwarded her the packet with the Zoom link. So she should have that.
Oh, she's trying to get in now. She's joining. Okay. She's probably getting her audio and video and everything connected right now, but there she is.
Good morning.
Good morning, Laura. How are you?
Great. How are all of you?
Good. Yeah, we're well. Thank you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
And sorry I'm slow.
No, that's just fine. We're on item 3, which is consideration of resolution 2008 that authorizes the issuance and sale of tax exempt bonds.
Excellent.
And that's your cue. So Roger, do you want to say any introductory
words?
Yeah,
let me introduce it a little bit. This isn't anything new, but the timing is a little sooner than we had originally expected. And so this is, we had put together kind of a 5-year plan to build out all the remaining areas of the Utopia cities. We had initially thought of doing 3 phases for that, but the conditions and everything last time we came were pretty good, and so we did a little bit of larger amount and kind of put it into 2 phases and have ramped that up to be a shorter plan, which is good, so long as we had the ability to do that from a financial perspective. And so we've wrapped up that first phase of that complete the thing out project. And this really is the second half. So we don't really see 3 more phases or two more phases even. This is really the final phase of build out of the original Utopia UIA cities, which we have remaining areas in West Valley City, Midvale, Murray, and Orem. I miss any on this one? I think that's the lion's share of what this bond is. There's some other smaller needs in there for backbone and building some routes and various projects. And also, as opportunities come, we may need to use these funds for things that are better off than what those projects would be, but those would be small amounts. I mean, this would always, for the lion's share of this thing is going to be to build out those networks. And one example there that you'd be comfortable with would be like UEN projects. So UEN has a big RFP out for connecting schools and things like that. And we get better revenue from schools than we do from homes, but it's also part of the goal of the project is to provide services for entities like that. So there may be, a project here and there that kind of tweaks the spend in our favor, but not to our detriment. So want to preserve some flexibility with the use of funds, but the lion's share is going to be for the build out of all remaining areas of the network. The revenue growth leading up to this is what we need to be strong in order to be able to go to the bond market and say, yeah, this is still a good, rating that we can go get money on. And I'll let Laura speak to that. There's been some really good work happening, and part of the timing is a result of work that's happened with Fitch ratings. And again, I'll let her talk to that a little bit. But this is an exciting bond. This is going to finally get this thing wrapped up, which we've been working at this thing for a long time. The build out would go over the next approximately 1.5 to 2 years. You'll see there's timelines in our schedule that are far past that. And so again, this is us trying to have that ability to be ahead of schedule and get this thing wrapped up quickly. And the sooner that we finish the build, the sooner we're in a position to use any financial upside towards the relieving debt. Right now, the priority of available funds has been, let's get this thing built out quicker and get to the end, the finish line. And as soon as we get to the finish line, now suddenly that puts us in a better position to, offset costs. We have to decide the mechanisms for how Utopia and UIA work together with how money works, but conceptually, there will be money available to offset costs that would result in Utopia being able to potentially help with debt payment or whether that's transfer funds or things like that. So task 1 has always been build the network out. Task 2 is relieve debt, and that puts us in a position to get to step 2 faster. So that's where we're at. Laura, do you want to share the memo, or do you want me to share the memo?
Why don't you share the memo? That'll be fastest and most efficient.
Okay. Yep, I've got it up here, so I will share that.
So Roger says that this is a great bond. I think all bonds are great bonds. I did not send this until way late last night, so I apologize that it's not in your packet. It completely slipped my mind that I intended to do this. So better late than never. As I start out here, I'm not going to read it, but this really is a phenomenal day. And truly what a difference a decade makes, because 10 years ago, you cities set out with a vision of a new way to take what we had with Utopia and facilitate the construction of the fiber throughout your communities. And with this bond, it completes that initial vision. Now, as Roger mentioned, we're expecting to have to do smaller bonds in the future. All of your cities are growing. Connections, the demand continues to be higher, in part due to COVID, but higher also because Utopia's name is now maybe not a household name, but among people who love fiber and love the speed of fiber, it's becoming much more of a household name. So I think it's a great day. So when we last approached Fitch, their concern was that, you issue more debt sooner than they deemed that you would be ready. And their rating analysis be direct about that. What could cause this rating to go down? Issuing debt sort of before you're ready. That's my words, not theirs. But it's been, of prime concern to Roger, Laurie, and I, because the last thing we need is for you to lose that investment grade rating, and we're right on that edge. We all know that. So that's been a very large concern. Fortunately, and I'm not often thinking that it's fortunate that the rating agencies do a surveillance rating, but their timing this time was quite fortunate. They had contacted Laurie to do their surveillance rating probably, I don't know, Laurie, a couple of months ago. Is that when they started? Initial contact?
6 weeks.
I'm sorry, when?
6 weeks. Probably about 6 weeks ago, yes.
6 weeks ago, okay. And started into the process, and when they get into that process, it's a lot of work for Laurie. They want all kinds of projections. The historic stuff is one thing, but they also want projections. It's a fair amount of work for them as they continue to gain what I will call even a better understanding of UIA and its structure. And I think they gained some insight this time into how the UIA city transactions work, and how that complements your revenue capacity without dinging your debt burden. That took a fair amount of conversation with them. But again, I think they continue to come along in their understanding. And I know I was on the phone with them 3 separate times with Laurie, and I think she was on the phone with them even more. Throughout that process, we discussed, what we, early in that process, Laurie and I discussed, what do we show them? Do we show them, what we're really planning on doing in issuing debt in February? Or do we, just show them sort of the look of how it is? My advice was that we start out by showing them the, look of how it is, because of my concern over their worry of issuing debt too soon. So that's what we did, knowing full well that you had the need for new debt to continue your build, and that would occur, first quarter next year. I had already talked to Key Bank about, the possibility of doing some subordinate bonds until you could reach a point when your revenues would, catch up with the debt issuance, so that Fitch wouldn't worry. So I had that in our hip pocket. And during one of the conversations with Fitch, they asked about future debt plans, and we talked about that, possibility of issuing some subordinate bonds, because we were, concerned about maintaining the rating. And the analyst said, his name's Dennis Pidherney, he said, well, why don't you show it to us with the debt assumed, that you bring that in on a parity basis, and I'll discuss that with the committee. So yet more work was generated for Laurie, and she did those new projections. And story I've drug out way too long. We actually worked through that. They took it to their committee, assuming that you would issue new debt the first quarter next year. And even taking that debt into account, knowing it would be coming first quarter of 2021, Fitch maintained the rating, which was huge. And even, added frosting on that was that they maintained the stable outlook. So they, for several years now, they'll issue a rating and then like, well, is that rating stable, or should you worry about it, kind of thing. So with that, it very much paved the way to get those bonds underway. And I indicated to Laurie and Roger that with that, we might as well get the parameters resolution going, and get the transaction moving along so that we're ready to hit the market when the market's ripe to hit. I don't know that that will be in November, December. That will depend largely upon how, how the election and the possible lack of quick results impacts the market. But I think certainly, the first quarter of next year will be ripe to do that. So the parameters resolution that's in front of you today contemplates, the numbers contemplate 2 to 3 years of capitalized interest. We actually for parameters purposes have assumed 3 years of cap I. We will pare that down as prudent as we get nearer to the time of issuing the bonds and looking at those cash flow projections. We've assumed the maximum par amount of the bonds will be 57 million. That stated, it's currently the debt service numbers are run so that the par would be closer to 54 million. As you know, I always try to keep a little headroom there just in case of if interest rates move, capitalized interest goes up, et cetera, et cetera. Principal amortized not to exceed 27 years. We've set a maximum interest rate at 6%. That's to allow for premium couponing, which the market's still demanding in some years. Interestingly, however, we're also seeing discount bonds being more of the norm in the long end. Just as a sidebar, we typically see that when people think that interest rates are going to remain low for a long time. So that's kind of interesting. At the moment, the preliminary indications are that the highest coupon will be 4%, and that your true interest cost will be in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 3.6%. The average annual debt service for this new series of bonds will be anticipated to be between $3.6 and $3.7 million of new debt every year. And we're currently poised to close sometime in February, but that date could move up or back depending upon market conditions. It's not like we're done with the rating process related to this bond. We will have to take, the documentation and everything back to them, and they will issue a rating on these specific bonds. But with the surveillance rating, we're quite confident that we'll maintain that rating. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions unless, Brad, do you have anything to add from a parameters perspective? Maybe talking about the designated officers? I meant to. Brad, is Brad here?
Sorry, Laura, I just filling through, the screen, trying to get back on video and unmuting my microphone. No, I mean, I think you've explained it quite well. I think you went through the parameters quite well. This is pretty much the same thing that we've done on previous issuances, where we have authorized a series of bonds up to a certain maximum principal amount. We authorize a certain maximum interest rate. The interest rate this time increased a little bit. Laura can probably get into that a little bit. We've been using 5%, but with kind of uncertainty in the market, I think that we bumped that up to 6%. Laura can speak to the market, but I think all indications are that the market's still going to be a strong market, even going forward in 2021. I think the schedule for this now has us authorizing these bonds now, putting together an offering document, and then going to the market the first time in January and closing the deal in February. I don't know whether or not there's anything else to be said from the standpoint of this parameters resolution. It's pretty much what we've previously done, nothing new.
And Brad, I meant to look up this morning and didn't make it due to my daughter's school-related issues, but would you remind me who the designated officers are in the parameters resolution?
Okay, let me get to there just really quickly. And, go back to the.
Sorry for the short notice on.
No worries at all. I had the resolution pulled up, and I was just scrolling through it. Our designated officers are. Bear with me for just a second. It should be grant any three of the chair of the board, vice chair of the board, the chief executive officer, and the secretary treasurer. So any three of those.
Great. And as we get closer to pricing, I will need that group of three. Typically, Roger and Laurie are available. I'll need either the chair or the vice chair. Available for the pre-pricing and the pricing call. But again, that's a few months away. We'll certainly give you notice in advance of that. So with that, are there any other comments? Laurie, do you want to say anything about the conversations you had with Fitch?
We did spend quite a bit of time with them. One comment that Dennis had was that the rating for the new bond would largely depend upon our performance from July to November and December of the current fiscal year. We're currently on track to meet our projections. So I think we'll be able to show them that we will be able to do that and that our revenue projections are good. We have been seeing an increase of about 900 to 1,000. However, I used 700 new connections per month going out through 2025. So their biggest concern is that we can't keep up with our debt with the revenue. As long as we can show them that the revenue is coming in to keep those ratios low, he was very positive. Right now, we have about $16 million in the bank with the trustee in bond funds. However, 12 million of that is for Clearfield. We have another $16 million in cash fund reserves. That is what we will be using until the bond is issued, and then we have the option of reimbursing UIA for the costs incurred between now and the time the bond is issued. We'll need to decide what a good cash reserve level is and possibly reimburse us for some of those costs.
Great. So with that, any questions of the board members?
Alex, I have a couple questions if I can jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
So being the new guy, Roger, maybe you're the best, or Lori, just help me understand the repayment of these bonds. Is Centerville or any other cities contributing back to the repayment? And if so, what is that?
No, go ahead, Roger.
Well, all the UIA bonds are being paid from subscriber revenues, and we're in a good position with this one to already have the revenues we need to pay for this bond before we even take it down. The amounts that the cities are paying are Utopia bond payments. That would be for the various projects up through about 2009, but that was a refinance in 2011. Is that right? So the payments are going towards that. So as things get better and better at UIA, there's a couple of things that happen that are good for Utopia, because the goal is to offset that debt at some point. We have to figure out what the mechanisms are for that. The short term is we're just trying to get this thing built out at UIA and paying for that with our revenues there. But as we have revenues that we don't have debt payments at UIA for, that money becomes available for whatever it may be. And at that point, we need to have some more meetings about agreements between Utopia and UIA and how we may be able to do funds transfer or change of services. Each year we've kind of readjusted our costs between Utopia and UIA. So if we're able to take on more of the cost burdens and operating costs at UIA, then that would offset costs at Utopia, and that puts Utopia in a better financial position. So we have to figure out exactly the right ways to do it, but conceptually, as the financial situation at UIA gets better, that is good for Utopia. But the payments being made by cities right now are Utopia bond payments.
And if I can quickly add to that, there is no pledge from the cities required on this bond. We are not asking for additional pledge from any of the cities.
I didn't see anything in the documents that say it as such. I just wanted to verify. But based on, Lori, what you had said, my follow-up is, if we have projected our projections are too high and we fall short on the revenues, I know things are going really well, but I think that is definitely my one concern. Revenues are well, but is that sustainable? And if it is, great. If it's not, then what?
As far as being able to get to where we could cover the debt, we're already there. It's just how much upside would be available to offset other costs. I think that's up questionable. But as far as being able to cover the debt, this debt's we're already in a position to be able to cover this debt. Okay. We'd have to have a decrease of customers and revenues for that to be, for this to fall back on the cities. And that's, we're already in an unlikely situation that the revenue growth doesn't continue pretty strong. But as far as stopping and going down, we get in a very, very unlikely territory with that.
Great. So to summarize, current revenue be able to sustain or pay for this new debt, and any new revenue coming forward will help assist and build that revenue to help pay off the bad debt, shall we say, lack of a better term, hopefully in the future. Is that right? Did I say that
That's
correctly?
accurate. But he needs to correct that on, but I think that's
Okay.
my understanding.
I didn't say it very eloquently, so I get it. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Alex.
You bet, Brad. That's good questions. I had just a couple of questions, maybe just informational, even though it was explained a bit. It looked like Laura, you said the par amounts you're anticipating to be about 54 million. I think, Roger, you'd send out, unless I'm misremembering, that we thought the actual number needed was about 45 million. What's the difference between those two numbers?
And I'll jump in there. The difference between those numbers is capitalized interest and a debt service reserve fund. In a lot of the issues that the cities issue currently directly, if you were to issue your own sales tax bonds, and a specific example when we did the UIA Layton transaction, because that, unlike this transaction, did come with an additional pledge of your franchise tax revenues, we did not need a debt service reserve fund because the bondholders are reliant. I can't quite say solely, because they are on a parity with the bonds where the cities did issue the original UIA commitment. But because these bonds are now dependent upon success of the take rates, they are viewed as much riskier than the UIA city transactions where we have the service agreement and that added pledge. So it's required that we fund a debt service reserve fund. So I can pull up the numbers and give you the exact, but the rough numbers are typically that reserve is the lesser of 10% amount of the par of the bonds, or the maximum annual debt service. The debt service, as I indicated, is about 3.7 million. So, that's going to fund up to that 3.7 million. Then in addition to, that, we have built in this parameters numbers. We've assumed 3 years of capitalized interest and then the cost of issuance. That's the difference.
Okay. Have we traditionally done, I should remember this, 3 years cap I, or?
Typically you've done 2.
2, okay, that's what I was thinking. Is there a reason for the 3? Other than just
we had modeled 3 initially, or excuse me, we'd modeled 2 initially, and then for purposes of the parameters, knowing that, again, Fitch's concern is that your revenues catch up to the debt payments, because they know that you're going to go out and build and get new customers with all of this. And so, and they don't want it just sort of one-to-one. They want to know that you've got coverage. So the idea is to preserve, from a parameters perspective, to preserve the ability to lengthen that runway if we decide it's prudent. As we get closer, we can certainly pare that back to 2 years cap I, and that saves a significant amount of money, and probably $1.5 million. I'll pull numbers up here in a minute. I didn't think to do that this morning. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
And we're probably saying it's most likely we're going with 2 years. We're just including the flexibility in the parameters resolution.
Correct.
Okay, and then Brad spoke to, or touched on, which I appreciated, the interest rate, the tick that we thought would be result from this bond, and I think he indicated that it was a little bit higher than what we'd had in the past, which his memory is better than mine, but I was wondering about the same thing. And can you speak to that, Laura? Is there something in the market, or is it, again, just a Fitch being extra cautious?
Hold on, there we go. It's a little bit being extra cautious, but more of a concern to me is the fact that we're seeing in the last couple of bond issues that we've priced, we're seeing the demand from the market purchasers in order to get the best yield to do a discount bonds in the long bonds. So just by way of a quick reminder, if we have a premium bond, that means the coupon on the bond is higher than the yield. That means that when they buy the bond, they're giving us more than 100 cents on the dollar. When they have a discount bond, it's the opposite of that. It's just that flipped, and they send us less than 100 cents on the dollar. So I wanted to raise the coupon so that if we have discounts in those latter years, I could say to the underwriters, you know, those, again, we've seen a lot of 5% coupons in the past. You know, those 5% premium coupons we have, well, I need you to have one of them be 5.25 or 5.5 to offset some of that discount, you know, the impact of the discount on those bonds in the longer ends. So it really is just a matter of flexibility. Again, we think the true interest cost is going to be in the neighborhood of 3.5%, and that's being a little cautious. That's about 25 basis points higher than I'm really expecting it if we were in the market today. I'm just trying to hedge a little bit for, you know, my ability to predict interest rates for the next 4 months is not really very good.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there, yes, go ahead.
Alex, and I just had a couple questions. So
You bet, Jason.
if we look at the current cash we have for build out, I'm not sure if I caught this. When exactly did you say we project that we're going to be needing these funds?
If we close by January or February, we'll be fine. And as Laura mentioned, she has been in conversation with KeyBank if we need some sort of a bridge loan to get us to closing.
So you're thinking you're going to burn through the current construction amount we have for the 11 Utopia cities. That will be sometime around February. Is that what you're thinking?
Around January. We have, most of the money sitting with the trustee is bond money for Clearfield. So we are pretty close to the point where we're going to be using our cash reserves for construction for Utopia UIA until we get the bonds. But we have, because of capitalized interest and because of increased take rates, we have about $16 million that we can rely on and use for construction until the bonds are issued.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay,
And
you're welcome.
Alex, that gave me a little bit of time to pull up the sources and uses of the bonds. So the deposit to the project construction fund that I'm utilizing is $46 million. There's again, a little bit of fluff in there possibly, but trying to be conservative there and give us some headroom. The deposit to the capitalized interest fund is about 6.19 million. And again, that would be for 3 years. The deposit to the debt service reserve fund is 3.7 million. And the balance is for cost of issuance, which again, we've tried to estimate our, we try to estimate high and then bring them, fine tune them as we get closer.
Okay, thank you. Related to something that Jason said, it made me think of asking Aaron, I guess Aaron or Roger probably would be the best, but are we seeing any increase in construction costs, either because of market prices having to do with wages and materials, or the nature of the footprints that are being done now? If the assumption has been in the past, which I think is true, is that, or not the assumption, the reality is that we've been looking at taking footprints down based on a formula, including ROI. Are some of these remaining footprints more difficult and thus more expensive to build, or are things pretty much normal? And it's just a matter of the costs are being driven by the construction itself, not by a change in the construction that's going to make it more expensive going forward to finish this last little bit than it was before, if that makes sense the way I've said that.
Yeah, and I'd say our blend of project in front of us is pretty typical in this next phase as the previous, meaning we have some areas that are higher cost and we have other areas that are lower cost. We have some aerial, there's kind of a nice blend. There's also a good blend when it comes to areas that we think would have good return. I think one of the concerns was, well, what if this last part of the project was the least profitable and we were not going to expect good revenues off of these? But we actually have quite a bit of really good area in these cities. And that's all of them that we're talking about. I mean, some of the Orem neighborhoods are factored even higher than our average revenue. Some of the highest end neighborhoods are still yet to be built. They do cost more to build, but we'll get really good take rate and revenues off of them. We have a lot of in Murray as well, which we had some reasons to delay some of the areas in Murray in the past, which we don't have now. And those are some very good areas from a take rate perspective, and decent costs as well. So we have kind of this blend. It's pretty typical of what we have been doing at UIA over the last several years. So as we say, what do we expect? I don't really expect it to be significantly better, but we don't expect it to be worse, both from a construction cost and from a take rate and revenue perspective. It's pretty much just a continuation of what we've seen in the past. I mean, I'd love for it to be better, but it's good enough, and the take rates and demand have skyrocketed. So while we're forecasting, this 700 new customers type of month, going forward, the last 4 or 5 months we've been over 900, and so we think we'll continue to have very strong growth above what we've even forecasted, and the pace of construction is faster than it's ever been as well. So that kind of, as the pace of construction increases, it lags, but the ability of more people to sign up and increase those take rates or those subscriber numbers and revenues, it lags behind that construction by about 6 months as projects get wrapped up. And so we're expecting to have kind of a huge push in signups and revenues as a result of what's happening right now, which is the fastest rate of construction we've ever done in Utopia. I think we did the last stat was something like 11 to 12 miles of underground conduit path, and this is the hard stuff, the stuff that's drilled into the ground, about 11 miles of that in 1 week, which puts us kind of at a pace of about 40 to 50 miles of construction completed, each month, which is many times what we were doing years ago. And so the pace is good. And what that does is it results in lots and lots of homes and businesses that can sign up for services coming, trailing that by about 6 months. And so that'll be very good as we wrap this thing up over the next year to 2 years. We'll see a lot of area that has never had the service before being able to sign up, in addition to all the existing areas. We still have a lot of area that we consider new, that we have completed over the last year or two, that's just still signing up at a great momentum. So anyways, I'll ramble on about that, but things are very good. The outlook looks really good. Aaron, do you have any comments about that, the construction costs and things?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Alex, that our projections are doing well as far as what our estimate is versus actuals. We've had a little bit of slight concerns with materials, mostly due to Corona and to some of the natural disasters. But in my opinion,
some shortage, right?
Yeah, in my opinion, we've weathered those pretty well. So.
Good. Another question, not to belabor it. With the demand that exists because of, well, it exists for a lot of reasons, including the pandemic. I'm assuming part of that's what's driving it. Are we seeing existing incumbent providers trying to redouble their efforts to capture some of the market, or are they just standing pat, or do we see new people entering into the market in this area hoping to capture some of that demand, if that makes sense? Or is it, other than us, everybody else has been pretty stagnant?
Kim, do you want to pipe in on that?
I was going to let you, because you always speak on top of you, but I'll go. I think you're seeing everybody in the broadband field grow during this pandemic because of the need for broadband, but I don't really think that the market looks any differently. I think where we're seeing the success and seeing the tremendous growth is because of our product offerings, and that we are offering higher and symmetrical speeds. I think before people didn't understand the importance of having a upload, but with all this video conferencing, like we are doing right now, more and more people are aware of the need of a higher and more quality broadband and upload. Anything else you would like to add, Mr. Timmerman?
I'd say reliability. So one of the biggest things is people have their 150 to 200 meg connection from some other provider. I won't name them, that should on paper be good enough, but it isn't because of the reliability issues. So things slow down during peak hours. And so there's these theoretical speeds that people are not putting up with anymore. And so that reliability of, I can't be down anymore, you know, that's really driving a lot of people to Utopia, because if you start your day and you're working from home, that's a different situation than you're at work and, you know, your home, your house connection isn't working. Well, the kids are at school and you're at work or whatever it may be. Well, that's not what happens now. So that has driven a lot of people to Utopia from a reliability perspective, and they can always count on that capacity being there when they need it. And so that's been good. You know, I think the question comes up, you know, play devil's advocate a little bit, is like, does that demand go away when life comes back to normal? And I don't think so. I think more and more people are planning to do what they can to work remotely and more education online, but, you know, they get a little addicted to it as well. So once we have them with fiber, even as circumstances may change, we keep them. You know, it is a little bit of a hassle to change provider, and once you get used to fiber and how great it is, people aren't, you know, even if somebody shows up with a promotion or a lower priced offering or something like that, our churn rates are still exceptionally low, which is the rate you lose customers. And we don't really see any reason for that to change. You know, fiber is sticky, as we call it. You know, once people have that, they stay with it. So we're going into this with really good confidence. You know, the other stuff we see out there in the market just really isn't a threat at all, and we haven't seen any of it be it, and we don't expect it to be. If anything, you know, they're probably a lot concerned that there's going to be more Utopia out there and more, you know, projects like Utopia, because people are getting increasingly frustrated with those incumbent providers.
Roger, just curiosity, as you have churned, do you do any surveys or, you know, any inquiry into why people have left? I mean, I would assume, you know, some, if not most of, is because of people moving, but I'm just curious if you have any intel on that. Just again, sheer curiosity.
You want me to go, Timmerman, on this one?
Go ahead, Kim. Yeah.
So we don't have any really concrete evidence because most of the customers cancel with their service providers. We are working on, when we implement a new system, of gathering some of that data that we don't have today, because it is interesting. But from really anecdotal stuff that we have seen, most of it is just moving. But with a low churn rate, as we're seeing, that it kind of correlates that the moving and the cancellations are about the same. So, and as we expand our footprint, hopefully we won't have that issue of people moving and not being able to get it in their new home.
Get back on.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm already building that rating presentation in my head.
One more question. This is a little bit of a sidebar, so I apologize, but Roger, for you, or maybe Kim, or whoever, but do we have any communities? My recollection is that the network's growing every place, in the existing areas as well as the new areas. But are there any communities that are underperforming in terms of what would otherwise be expected because of political dynamics or you know, disfavor that Utopia has in the community? I don't raise that to be judgmental, just to say, is there an opportunity, if that exists, for us to reach out to those communities and see what we can do to address the relationships to help the whole network go forward? Not of course to judge or lecture or anything, but just to say, hey, there's this horse is out of the barn. It's going to stay out of the barn. It's doing great. We ought to celebrate it. But if there are lingering relationship issues, I think we ought to extend an olive branch and, if needed, and try to solve those. I mean, there's so much good things to celebrate and talk about that we ought not to let, if it exists, you know, differences from years and years ago stand in the way of celebrating this for the community. So, like I said, it's a little bit off track.
I would definitely say it helps. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I've said too much. Go ahead, Roger.
It definitely helps to have city support in the project. I mean, we see, you know, marked difference when we've had some cities change, you know, their public opinion of Utopia and promote it, and we've seen a bump. I think across the board, we've actually seen a lot of increased support from our member cities generally. I mean, we've, you know, some of them more dramatically than others. I mean, Payson was a dramatic change where they're all very supportive there, and we've seen take rates skyrocket there. And we have a specific project that came out of that with the second half of the city being built out as their own city-specific project. But in the other cities, you know, there's room for improvement some areas, but I do feel like overall there has been definitely an improvement of public perception of Utopia, and as public perception of Utopia improves, a lot of times elected officials follow suit a little bit, just because an anti-Utopia attitude is very increasingly unpopular these days. You know, we have very good satisfaction. You know, if you look at other, you know, I'd hope that other city services follow, you know, very, very approved rating, but you know, historically, Utopia may not have been up to that level, and I think Utopia now, you know, as we do metrics out there, we see that we're the top-rated broadband in the state, that generally people are very supportive of us. Of course, people don't like debt, and they don't like, you know, the expense and the burden that it's been on the Utopia, or on the city budgets, and we feel that. You know, our goal here is to alleviate that. That's one of our top priorities, but as far as the service and the benefit to the communities, I think the attitude has been generally increasing significantly across our various cities. Not to say we don't have individuals that cause a little bit of trouble here and there. But, you know, I think from my perspective, I appreciate the work that's gone out there. I think there has been a lot of olive branches and trying to, you know, get past some difficult times, and now that things are going a lot better, it's a little easier, I think, for cities to get behind it. Obviously, we appreciate those that have stuck with it through the difficult times. It's kept us going, but I don't know. I don't know if there's any specific efforts we want to address, but you know, any efforts are appreciated. We appreciate the relationship we have with all the cities, and hope that you continue promoting Utopia in your communities. It does help us get more customers. The more customers we get, the more we can address, you know, debt and expenses and improve the financial situation and outlook. So any opportunities you as board members have for outreach, we're more than happy to come meet with city councils, to have events, attend whatever we can if it helps politically in cities to present what we're doing and the progress that's been made. Anything we can do to help with that, we are anxious to help.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. And are there any other questions from members of the board? I would just say, and I've said too much, but before we ask for a vote on this, is I think that there's been several references, which I appreciate, and it's completely accurate and legitimate, the regional debt, whereas Brent called it carefully, you know, bad debt. But I think that it's important to remember as well that while we wish we didn't have it, the fact is that the good things that are happening today is because that debt was issued and we actually built a network. And even though the network didn't thrive in its early years, that's the foundation that we're standing on today to thrive. And if that debt wouldn't have been issued and that network never built, we would be doing something else this morning. We wouldn't be talking about Utopia. So that doesn't minimize it. We wish we didn't have it, and it is expensive, but I think it's we're lucky to have it, because it's, again, the foundation of everything we're doing today is that network that the people said was bad because it took debt to build, and now it's the source of our success. I don't know if that makes sense or not. The other thing I'd say, which is a credit to each of you, is Laura in her write-up, she says what a difference a decade makes. I would respectfully reframe that or add to it and say what a difference a group of remarkable, resilient, courageous, smart people, with the exception of the chairman, have made in this. And I think really, that's the difference from now and 10 years ago. YouTube has always been blessed with good people, but each of you have contributed to the success of this organization through, some of you have been around and have enough gray hairs to live through the very bad times and also to appreciate the good times. But I think that's always been the success of Utopia and UIA, is the quality of the people involved. And from the staff to the board members to our financial people, Brad and Laura have just been exceptional, relationships with KeyBank. This thing has really been a team effort from top to bottom. But I think the bottom line is you're just good people, and you're very competent, and we try to do the right thing in the right way. And we've been helped. We've been blessed, if I can use that word, because that's how we go about our business. And so anyway, what a difference, yes, a decade makes, but what a difference a great group of people can make individually and collectively. So I tip my hat to all of you. Hope that isn't too sappy, but that's our secret sauce.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well said, Alex.
I'm sorry, Laura, I talked over you.
I said that's very, very well said. And I am one of those that have a lot of gray hair and remember some of the not so good days. And it took a lot of perseverance. So anyway, that was very well stated.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brad. Thank you for those words and the perspective as well. I just wanted to add one more thing with respect to the resolution that we'll be talking about. This resolution will authorize us to take all the action necessary we need to in order to issue the bonds. That being said, there is still another meeting that has to be held in order for us to issue the bonds. It's a public hearing. That public hearing is scheduled to occur right now on December 14th. So at that hearing, we just have to give folks an opportunity to be heard. But in terms of any kinds of resolutions that need to be adopted, this is the last and final resolution we'll need to take, unless, of course, we have additional amendments that are desired to be made. But in terms of going forward with the bond issue, this is the only thing that we need.
Okay, thank you, Brad. And just to clarify, this resolution 20-08 takes care of both of those items in a single motion, right? The authorization for the issuance of the debt plus the setting of that public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions before we entertain a motion from the board members? Okay, if not, I'll be happy to entertain a motion regarding resolution 2008.
I'd like to step in if I could. If you guys will let me. Waited a long time for this. I'm going to be retiring in January, so this is very fitting for me to see somewhat of a conclusion to the debt and to building out the network. So it's really been a pleasure to serve. And with that, I'd like to move that we approve resolution 20-08.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second, this is Brent.
Thanks, Brent. I think somebody should make a substitute motion adding to the resolution that Paul cannot retire.
Yeah. Well, I'm just planning on going to that new utopia in the sky someday, so I guess I better prepare.
You've got a long time, my friend. Well, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call on this. I'll try to catch everybody. Brenda?
Aye.
Thank you. Paul?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Sorry, I'm jumping around here to try to see all of you.
You need Jason.
Okay, who's on for Payson?
Jason Roberts.
Oh, Jason, I'm sorry. Jason?
Aye.
Sorry, Jason. And then Leighton is an aye. Did I miss anybody?
Brent Hansen.
Oh, Brent. Looking right at you, Brent. Sorry.
You're fine, no problem. I'm an aye. Thank you.
I lost you in that sea of books behind you. You look like a statue of Thomas Jefferson.
disregard how messy that one row is. I have kids.
Have I missed anybody? Okay, it appears to be unanimous. So thank you. Next item is a resolution 2009 to consider establishing an audit committee for UIA. Lori, I think you're going to speak to that.
Yes, if you remember a couple of board meetings ago, we went over the fraud risk assessment, and one of the recommendations from the state auditor was that we form an audit committee. So I spoke with each of the members of our finance committee, and that consists of Jason Roberts from Brigham City, Tracy from Layton, Jim Welch from West Valley City, and Brandon Nelson of Orem, about serving on an audit committee. Drafted a resolution, sent it to all of them to review and make sure that they were okay with the resolution. And so this resolution would formally appoint, would formally form an audit committee. The resolution sets out what the responsibilities of that committee are. For the main, I think, benefit of having an audit committee is the ability for the audit committee to sit down and have an informal conversation with the auditors. So either at the beginning of the audit or after the audit. Usually the report to the board is quite succinct. With an audit committee, they have time to sit down and talk about different issues that the auditors found or want to talk about. So also I want to mention before you consider the resolution, the website for the training that was recommended, the introductory training for municipal officials. I have that link and I'll send that out immediately after the meeting so that all of you as board members can take that training. You may have already been requested to do that by your cities, but I went through one of those trainings. It's pretty beneficial. I liked it. So do you have any questions about the audit committee?
So Lori, on that training, some of us, as you inferred, may have done that for other organizations we're tied to. For example, you took IRMA for some of you. I assume that there's no need to take that again. Is there some way we just need to document or say that we've already taken that?
Yes, I think we can send out a request and just ask if you have taken it or when you complete this one, and that will help us improve our score and lessen the risk that we have as a group. So.
Okay, I think the training is the same. It had to do with boards and commissions. Yeah,
they offer several trainings. I previewed a couple of them. The one that I'm sending out, I think, is the one that I liked the best, but it's very heavily focused on financing, so on finances, so on budgeting, being able to understand the reports, but some of the requirements are of the state auditors. So.
Okay, maybe that'll be different then. We should look at that then. That's different than what we've already taken.
Okay, I will send the link out.
Thank you, Lori.
Welcome.
Are there any questions regarding this resolution from the board? Okay, very good. We'll entertain a motion then to approve resolution 20-09, authorizing the establishment of an audit committee for UIA.
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2-09, establishing an audit committee for UIA.
Okay, thank you, Brant. Jason, was that you? Gonna make a second?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call. Again, Brant?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And Layton is an aye. Did I miss anybody?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. It's approved. Next item, item 5, is a need to set a time and date for a public hearing to consider amendments to the UIA 2021 budget, fiscal year 2021 budget. So Laurie?
Yes, this, one of the budget amendments I know we need to look at would be amending the budget for the proceeds from the Clearfield bond. Depending how quickly we are able to get solid numbers in place for the Series 21 bond, that may be included. And then any other adjustments that we may need to make to UIA. And again, this just sets the date and time for the public hearing, so you'll have more information on those amendments as we get closer to that meeting.
It looks like we've got it set as the same time and the same hearing as the one for the debt issuance.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. So I'm happy to entertain a motion to set that time and date. Is that appropriate, Josh? We need a motion to establish that?
I believe so.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then from one of you.
I move to approve the setting of the public hearing, or to the public hearing to consider the amendments on December 14th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Let's go ahead and, I think, could we do a voice vote on that?
Let's do a roll call vote.
Okay. You attorneys are always unworkable. Thanks, Josh.
Apologies there, but I want to do it right.
No, absolutely. I need a lot of watching. So, Brenda?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Brand?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
And Brenda, did I get you?
You got Brenda, you need to do Paul.
Okay, Paul?
Aye.
And then Leighton is an aye. Okay, thank you. Next item is a UIA financial update. Laurie?
Okay, the recurring revenue graph shows that current recurring revenue system-wide is now at about $2.3 million. I wanted to point out that June of 2019, it was about 1.8 million. In June of 2020, 2.2 million. So, as you know, significant growth. Again, Utopia accounts for about $500,000 of that. The balance is UIA. And then the UIA revenue versus bond obligation. Monthly revenue for UIA right now is about $1.7 million. The dotted lines are represented by capitalized interest. Layton's first bond payment starts in October, starts this month in 2020. And then you have cumulative debt service. So as we add the Layton bond, Morgan, Payson, West Point in 2019, looks like the dot for Clearfield didn't show up, but that adds about $60,000 a month and gets us to about 1.7 million. With the issuance of the Series 2021, it would get us to about 1.4 million. I want to point out that the current gap that you see between the revenue and the accumulated debt service is very similar to what it was back here in just before the issuance of the 2019 debt. So once we issue that debt, the gap will be similar between revenue and debt service to what it was when we first issued the 2019 debt. We still have good coverage for our debt service.
This is the graph that they should be looking at when they say, okay, if we add the 2021 debt, the monthly is going to be about 308,000, give or take, right? And you can say, okay, yeah, that fits well still under this graph.
Exactly.
The revenue line.
And yes, and we expect that revenue line to continue growing at pretty close to what it is. As I said, the projections were a little bit more conservative than that, but that gap between the revenue line and the cumulative debt service line, we expect to continue to grow.
Thank you.
If you scroll down to the next one, this is kind of a rudimentary comparison of where we are with actuals compared to the 2021 budget. So with revenues, we are at 22%, which isn't surprising because our revenue is increasing by about $30,000 to $40,000 month over month. That number, if we had budgeted, I didn't do monthly budgets, so obviously we would have started with lower revenue and then increased it as the year goes on. But at 22%, a quarter through the year is about where I would expect to see our revenue. We've already collected installation revenue at what we budgeted. The rental income, we're at 25%. That is the rent that Utopia pays to UIA for the use of this building. And interest income on contracts, 25%. In total, our revenue is $4.7 million, 22% of the budgeted $21.8 million. Overall expenditures are at 24%. We are below 25% for all of those different categories. Currently, our revenue over expenditures before debt service is $3.2 million. And then I've attached the press release from Fitch Ratings, which affirmed the BBB- rating with a stable outlook. We talked a lot about the conversations that we had with them. Again, one of their comments is that although high leverage is offset, that our high leverage is offset by our ability to access pledged loans of franchise fee revenue from creditworthy cities. Another comment that I thought was noteworthy, they stated that our competitive risk is offset by distinctive product offerings. So they are starting to get the picture of how Utopia and UIA are different from the Googles and the Xfinity of the world, Comcast of the world. That franchise pledge, again, is back on the 18 series debt. So there are no pledges with the Series 2019 or the proposed Series 2021. In their comments about rating sensitivity, they stated their concerns were that the higher than anticipated debt issuance could harm the rating. They are aware that we are planning on issuing debt in 2021. As Laura said, they asked us what our plans were and were positive about those plans. And as I mentioned, also the rating will strongly depend on meeting or exceeding revenue projections year to date when we go to them for the rating. We are currently on track. One thing they mentioned was the high credit rating of the 4 cities that they rate. So Mid-Bell, Murray, Orem, and West Valley are all AA or higher. The other 4 cities are not rated by Fitch. So they did take that into consideration with the BBB- rating. One of their biggest focuses is a ratio that's called net adjusted debt to funds available for debt service. That is the one that they just really hammer on. We pretty much have that formula figured out and are watching that closely to make sure that we keep our ratios where they need to be to keep Fitch happy. We want to keep Fitch happy. Once you read through that press release, if you have any questions, give me a call or give Laura a call, and we'd be happy to talk with you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Lori. Appears there's no questions, so very good. We'll move on to the next item, which is a network update. Roger?
All right, yeah, so we've been sending, let's see, I'm getting some feedback here. We've been sending subscriber reports, so I'm hoping everybody is getting those. If you're not, please let me know and I can make sure you get those in the future. But I just wanted to jump in there and share a couple of highlights. I think it's, good progress that we've been able to provide these reports and kind of provide that increased visibility into what we're doing here. Is that sharing properly? Try that again. So this has been, I've been emailing this out. This is the most recent one that shows our, I get asked a lot of questions, and so this is kind of to try preemptively get in front of that and answer any questions that people have. So just providing some statistics as far as where the network is, where we're building. These are recent residential take rates. You kind of see those trends just in the recent months. They're represented graphically here, where you can see, how this first chart, the availability shows, where we've actually built the network. And so we have more construction projects going on in parallel right now than we've ever had. And so as you see these lines going up, that represents new addresses that can get that service. So there's a lot going on right now. And then you can see the subscribers by city is growing. I keep having to change the scale of these charts because we keep clipping off the top because it has been growing very well. So this is their total number. So that's all addresses. And then when we talk about take rates, we usually just apply that to residential because on the business side, you may have lots of properties that don't really even use broadband. It might be a field or something, but then you might have another business address that represents $10,000 a month in revenue, different from another business that's a small business. And so the business revenue is important to us, but the take rate is very different because it skews so widely. So when we talk about take rates, usually that's just residential. So this chart shows residential take rates, and you see how those have been increasing in every city. And so we keep hitting more and more cities that are up over that 40% mark, which is very successful. The 30% is good. And so yeah, things are good. And each city now has a resource that they can use as they get questions, from their elected officials or others, where you have a city-specific report, so you can dig in and show, yeah, actually Utopia, Brigham City is a good example here where you can see the availability is increasing. Well, what that means is we are continuing to build out areas. There may be pockets in the city that were never fully completed, or there's new development, new homes being built and new things. And so we are having to build and spend money to make fiber available in those areas. But we have good subscriber growth as well. And so it's important to understand that Utopia continues to invest in the growth of these cities. I mentioned in my email, it's a little bit of a moving target as we plan out these bonds and the build out, because people keep building homes and some cities are annexing in areas even. And so, that's a small portion compared to this overbuild we're doing right now, but there'll probably be some increase or some need in the future to have some smaller bonds to finance kind of that new development and expansion and the installations themselves as we exceed the take rate that's covered with these bonds for installations. So anyways, I'm hoping this is a good resource for all of you. If you have questions as far as, more detail or what's going on in your cities, feel free to reach out. But that's should be out there in your email boxes from, I don't know when I sent the last one, probably a week ago. And then we include a snippet from our blog or news, where we have kind of just an update of press or other mentions of things that are going on in Utopia. We want you to all be aware of what's happening. A lot of good things are going on. We're getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of cities that are knocking down our door or wanting to partner with us. So I would expect that we would have future city partnerships to consider later. To some extent, we've tried to not take on too many of those. You know, Clearfield's a decent sized project and we're wrapping up things in West Point, but we don't want to be in a position where it would slow us down in the build out of this network. And as you can see, we've actually come back ahead of schedule and are finishing things quicker than we had planned, despite doing some additional city projects. But as we wrap things up, that might bring in some additional opportunity for some more cities and even maybe some larger cities. The nice thing is that now we have a little more history with Morgan and West Point, and we'll have more history with Clearfield and can show what the financial implications of these new city partnerships are. And so as we're seeing them still in the fairly early phases, they look very, very good in the sense that, that we don't really take on any risk for those projects. They come in with a guarantee on the financing of those projects. But because it's such a low incremental cost for us to do it, we can do them in a place that's profitable for the organization, and yet still, at a good deal or a good level of partnership with that new city where they get the benefits of UIA. And to some extent, it feels unfair, that we're giving them the benefits of partnering with UIA, not having to take on the early years of Utopia. But at the same time, we can point to a pretty good financial benefit to UIA as a result of that. And so I do think that we'll have more of those opportunities in the future. Obviously, we would bring those to the board here for approval if we feel like they're a good mutually beneficial project to pursue. So we don't have any for that today, so don't worry. But we probably have surveys and various discussions going on with probably 10 to 20 cities right now in Utah that have seen what you've done and what we've done as a team and the benefits to our communities, and that they have a lot of interest. But there's a lot of politics to get through with those, and so fewer of those come through to actually approving a partnership with us. And we put the bar pretty high on our side, even just politically. There's been discussions that, do we really want to go into some of these cities? And there have been opportunities we've turned down simply because we didn't feel like they were in our best interests, even though financially it may make sense. But if the political environment isn't good, or we foresee any other problems that might come as a result of a partnership, we do get to be pretty choosy about who we want to partner with. And so by the time we bring those to the UIA board for consideration, I think they've been through the ringer to some extent by that point. Any questions? I mean, that's kind of the update. Things are good. Those charts show the growth. Subscriber growth has skyrocketed, and our projections are based on a conservative version of that. So we pull those down quite a bit. But if we continue to do as we have been doing recently, then that financial position becomes amazingly good. And again, we're working really, really hard here. The team has survived. We're not, from an organizational perspective, we're not much bigger than we were 10 years ago. We have some additional employees, but most of those employees are simply insourcing things that were outsourced before. And we've asked the staff to do a lot more with a lot less. And when you look at things from what's being done, the amount of construction, the amount of customers we have, the amount of network we have, the staff is doing a phenomenally good job of putting up with the increased workload, and I think we're excited. I mean, it's not, for most of us here, it's not a job. It is a job, but it's also a passion, and we're all excited to see the progress that's happening. And I'm lucky to have a good staff here to work with, and appreciate the support from the board. You guys have been fantastic as well. So that's my update.
Any questions of Roger regarding that update? Roger, just a thought, maybe a comment. A thought is that I wonder if the next year when that debt is issued to complete the build out, and you'd have to decide whether that'd be premature or not, but I wonder if it'd be nice to send out something from Utopia/UIA to the cities, just announcing that this is the realization of the original goal, even though, you know, the construction hasn't been completed, and maybe we'd want to wait till then, I don't know. But to just congratulate them and thank them for their support through the years. I mean, this has happened much quicker than I think a lot of people anticipated, especially where we were at 10, 12 years ago. Might be a nice way to have a little bit of celebration around it, or acknowledgement, just like we've done today. The dream's been realized, the commitment's been kept. And then the other question.
I support that idea. I think it'd be great. I mean, we go back and report to our respective boards, but having the information that you've put together could be very helpful and we can confirm that information in our board meeting. So I think that's a great idea, Alex. I like it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Again, I think it's an opportunity to express appreciation too for the cities hanging in there. And again, it's been hard, but we did it. They did it. So then the other question I have, Roger, basically are more aligned with your report, is and Kim could speak to this too, how are we doing in making inroads with what I'll call institutional clients or customers? So UIA as an example, is that getting better, about the same? Anything we're learning there? And then also, I was thinking about faith organizations. Some of these entities that have, you know, they have a centralized structure, but then they have multiple units that come off them. Again, like some of the churches, if that makes sense. I know you're picking up some of those, at least for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on an individual basis. But are there any efforts with them or other faith organizations to try to get something more, a relationship at a more central level, where you're dealing with, you know, potentially large sums of money that they're paying for processing data? Anything? Does that make sense on those two issues? Any successes there or opportunities?
Yeah, I think yes and no. You know, there's some that we maybe still struggle with a little bit, but you know, the big successes have been UETN has been fantastic as a partner. I think we've continued to grow our business with them, but they're kind of a multi-tiered entity, and so they organize the bidding and the awards of contracts for schools, but the school districts themselves still have a lot of input in who they award the business to ultimately. And there have been some school districts we just have not done very well with, despite doing well in the bidding process. And it's been a frustration of ours. But at the same time, we've had other school districts that just come and practically beg for services. And even where, you know, there was a situation recently where CenturyLink, for example, simply failed to deliver. They had won awards in Orem City, and yet failed to deliver, and they ended up having to cancel those orders, and they were all moved over to Utopia. And so even though we've had fiber there for many years, we got some good wins there as a good partner, and so that was a good thing for us. We continue, you know, our business with UEN is highly competitive. They have to do an RFP process every year and bid those out and award to the most aggressive pricing and those that can deliver. And we've continued year over year to grow our business with them significantly. So that's been great. We've also increased our business with the state of Utah, and that was one that took many, many years to get in with them for any business at all. And so now there are various state of Utah locations that are on Utopia Fiber. We have several counties that were also not using us, that were kind of difficult to get in with, and now are using Utopia Fiber. Those are all very, you know, strategic governmental relationships. With the churches, you know, we've done very well. We are regularly connecting up meeting houses and churches, and our product set for religious institutions it's a very good price, but it's non-denominational, obviously, and we've had different entities or religions, I guess, using Utopia to connect their facilities. Obviously, there's a very large one, being the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's where the lion's share of the connectivity we've provided for religious institutions has come from. And it's been good. I mean, we've gotten a lot of orders and are connecting a lot of meeting houses and even some temples with that. I think the only one that we really miss out there is that we do not have a route directly to Brigham Young University. And so that's where one of their major data centers is. And so we miss out on some of the really big circuits, but have done really well in other areas. So yeah, as we get bigger, that puts us in a much better position to bid on those, because if we have locations and cities where we don't have coverage, that becomes a big hit against us, where some other providers may have a more extensive footprint, but our footprint is growing faster than anyone else. So we continue to get better, in a better position to bid on and offer services to those entities where they may have locations in our city, but it needs to get to another city. You know, the way telecommunications works is it's not just here's your internet, it's all connectivity to other locations. So the more cities we have at least some fiber route in and reachability, the better off we are. And a couple of those, you know, we recently built a Weber State in Ogden, and that's been opening up opportunities for schools and other locations throughout that whole area. We had previously missed out on schools in Morgan City, which was crazy because we're killing it in Morgan City with connectivity, but we couldn't deliver the circuits being requested in Morgan because they had to go to Weber. And so we do things, you know, we have to build routes in certain locations to make it available so that we can provide the end-to-end services. And so just one example, but we have a lot more connectivity out there now than we did, you know, from a reach into additional cities perspective. The focus being providing services to those entities in our cities, but we've got to be in other locations often to be able to provide the needed services. So there's a few of our achievements and victories there. So.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Well, I think we're at the end of the agenda. Are there any lingering questions or new ones that have come up as we've worked through the meeting today from any of the board members? Okay, well, thank you again for making the time and for your participation today, and thanks for being good and contributing to this organization in such a significant way. It really is a privilege to work alongside you and be associated with you. So wish you the best, and everybody keep safe and happy, and we'll visit, if not before, on the 14th of December, it sounds like. So everybody have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, everyone.